I want to start off by saying thank you for this opportunity to come and speak to you today. I don't want you to confuse with opportunity that I say this is an opportunity with the fact that I'm comfortable doing it, because I'm really not. I want to start off by telling a short story that will kind of explain a little bit about how I feel standing up here right now talking to you people. Several years ago, Lori, my wife, was in charge of putting an ad in several local newspapers. Now, this is in the day before text messages and emails and fax machines were quite as common as they are today. So the normal process was, if you wanted to get something in the paper like this, you called the newspaper or you went by. You kind of went through a short explanation of what you wanted your ad to be like. They would design the ad and set it up, and then they would call you back and ask you if you wanted to come proof it before they printed it. Well, she received a call from one of the newspapers saying that they had her ad ready for proof. She was scheduled to be in that town the next day, so she set up a time with the receptionist when she could go by and review the ad. She arrived at the newspaper office. She introduced herself to the receptionist, who got up from her desk, got the ad off her desk, and brought it to the counter, and set it down and waited for Lori to read through the ad. Lori read through the ad and noticed a mistake in it. Lori didn't really want to offend anybody. She wasn't sure who had written the ad or whatever, so she said, kind of in her most diplomatic way, "I think there's a mistake. This part right here doesn't sound quite right." The receptionist took the ad back and read it and kind of looked at her like, "I don't get it. What's wrong?" Lori continued, "I think the verb tense is wrong." Then she stated it using the correct verb tense and said to the receptionist, "Now, don't you think that sounds better?" The receptionist kind of still looked puzzled and said, "I don't know. I'm not no English teacher." Well, I want to stand up here right now and tell you that I'm not no preacher. So if you came here expecting to hear a nice polished sermon with a pretty PowerPoint and all that kind of stuff, you're not going to get that today. I can tell you three things you can expect today. Number one, it will be short. Especially as nervous as I am, I probably will go a lot faster than I think I'm going to go. Number two, it will be simple. It's not going to have a lot of deep theological points to it. It's going to be fairly simple, and simple in technology too, no PowerPoint. And it will be directed at me. I found out a long time ago in teaching and coaching that I do a much, much better job when I act like I'm talking to myself. So what I'm going to do up here today is talk to myself, and you're just going to get to listen in on my conversation I'm having to myself at this time. A help wanted ad read as followed. Wanted, a hardworking, hand-on person to work in a small business partnership. You will be a part of a dynamic and growing team. You must be able and willing to do the following. You must be willing to travel 30 to 40 weeks a year. You must have a keen love for the outdoors. You must be willing to work weekends, and usually at least 6 days a week. If you get off the seventh day, it will probably be to travel. You must have a mastery of applied physics, trigonometry, geometry, and algebra, as well as psychology and psychiatry. You also must be tech savvy. You must be well organized. You will be responsible for making sure that all equipment and supplies are on location and in great working shape before the rest of the team even arrives. You must be willing to be on site earlier than anyone on your team, and you will probably be the last one to leave each day. You must have the ability to remain calm and composed in desperate and tense situations, and it's your job to keep others on the team calm and composed in those situations. You must be able to provide upper management with information, sometimes even before they ask it. And your information and your advice you give must be based on very detailed preparation. You must be in great physical shape. Your job will require you to carry 40 to 50 pounds of equipment and supplies over a wide variety of terrains in all type of weather, usually walking more than 5 miles a day. Your pay will consist of a small salary, probably not enough to live on, plus commission if your team is successful. You may do your job perfectly well every time, and if the CEO doesn't do his job well, your pay will probably not be very good. You must pay all of your travel expenses and cover your meals. The CEO of the company will probably get a lot of his travel expenses and meals paid for. If your partnership is successful, the CEO will get credit for everything. If, on the other hand, your partnership is not successful, it's possible that you can get a lot of the blame. The CEO, even if he's just averagely successful, will make well in the millions of dollars each year, while you will probably make a decent living, enough to survive, and enough to maybe feed your family, and well, it'll be enough to feed your family. You'll make a decent living. The bad thing about the job is you could be replaced at any time. If the CEO decides that the partnership isn't working, you can be fired at any time. Sound like a job that you're interested in? Well, believe it or not, over the past 10 years, the people applying to this type of a job is up over 40%. I've got a list of the top 10 people that, in someone's opinion, of the top 10 people who are in this profession right now. And I want you to see if you can recognize any names. Now, before I read these names, I want you to understand these people are on TV almost all the time. They're just in the background a lot of times, and their names aren't really called out, but I just want to see if you can recognize any of the names. The first name on this list, and this is not in any order, it actually is in order. The last three I saved on purpose because I actually knew who they were. The first name I want to read is Ricky Roberts. Ring a bell to anybody? Okay. Billy Foster. John McLaren. Greg Herman. J.P. Fitzgerald. Ryan McGugan. Anybody have any clues yet? Okay. One woman on the list of the top 10, Fanny Secession. It's the only woman listed there. And now the last three I saved for last on purpose because I actually did recognize these three, and some of you may recognize these also. Mike Cowan. He's better known as Fluff. Jim McCrae. He's also better known as Bones. He has a nickname, Bones. And Steve Williams. If you haven't figured it out yet, these are professional caddies on the PGA Golf Tour. They carry the golf bag for the professional that they work for. They give advice, they read putts, they do all the work. The golfer gets all the credit when they win. Very seldom is the caddy even mentioned. Sometimes they get a little credit, but it's not very often. And what's the purpose of this? Well, our relationship with God is supposed to be somewhat like this. The scriptures I read earlier talked about God as the light, and that if we claim to have a relationship with Him, then we're in the light also. He is the one that should get the credit. He is the one that gets the glory. He's the one that gets the honor. And He gives us jobs to do. Now, not everything is exactly like the relationship with a caddy and a golfer. I don't want you to get that all messed up. I already said sometimes that a few times when mistakes are made, the caddy gets the blame. That's one thing we'll never ever have to worry about, is getting the blame for God. In fact, God tells us that He can probably do most of the work without us anyway, whether we help Him or not. He's capable of doing all the work that's there. But He wants us to be a part of His team, and He wants us to have a place in the team. And if you look at Mark 4:21, and I'm going to paraphrase this, not read it. If you look at Mark 4:21, we get one example of what our place is supposed to be. I could come up with examples all day long of things that would relate, but I'm just going to do a couple. And if you read Mark 4:21, it talks about no one takes a lamp and puts it under a basket, or no one takes a lamp and puts it under the bed. But what they do is they put the lamp on a lampstand, and it gives light into the whole room, fills the whole room with light. Well, we're supposed to take that light of His, and we're supposed to apply it in a way and show it in a way that we put that light up on the lampstand, and the world is supposed to see his light living through us. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever played golf with a caddy. I've only done it once in my entire life. And it was kind of a strange experience. I wasn't used to it. It made me a little bit uncomfortable having a caddy there. If you've never done it, it's something that's a little bit unusual. I want to go over this one little thing because I think it's important. We got to one of the greens, and the caddy went to a spot on the green and kind of pointed to the spot, and he said, if you'll putt right here, you'll make it. This is like a 5 or 6 foot putt. It's not the hardest thing in the world, but it's a 5 or 6 foot putt. Well, I'm looking at the terrain of the green, and I'm thinking the only way that ball is going to get there is if it rolls uphill, because I can see that the green is going a different direction than where he's pointing. So I don't trust him, and I put the ball where I think I should go, and I miss the putt by about a foot. He picks up the ball and tosses it back to me and says, now put it right here. Second time I putted it where he said, and it went in. He knew the greens that well. There's something, this was on a Bermuda type green, and there's something on Bermuda greens especially called grain. The grass grows a certain direction. He knew the grain of the green would make the ball go uphill. Strange and unusual to me, but it worked, and he knew it. From then on, I listened to him, and I did what he told me to do. And again, that's another way we're supposed to have that relationship with God. We have a manual that tells us everything we're supposed to do. And if we follow that manual, things work. And the outcome is a lot better. One more scripture I want to give before I close. And this is in Matthew 9:37. And I'm going to paraphrase this. It tells us that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. If you use this analogy, again, if we're the workers and we use this analogy, in all farming operations, when the harvest is good, the farmer gets a lot of credit, even though sometimes he didn't do anything different in a good year as he did in a bad year. All right? So we're supposed to be the workers of that harvest, and we're supposed to make sure that harvest is tended to. And then the credit goes to the one who deserves the credit, and that's God. If there's anything that we could help you with at this time, I would ask that you come forward as we stand and sing. And I've asked Richard to come down as an elder, and if you take care of those needs.